Right, so when you cast your vote for somebody, you hope they'll do a decent job, don't you? Stick to their word about what they're all about and hold them to account based on that. Did they do what they said they would? Have you seen the benefits of having voted for them? And if so, if a good job has been done, you expect to be able to say, yeah, okay, you're all right. You're worth backing again. In a world where few in politics do as they say, if you found one that does and has proven it to you, you'd want to hang on to them, yeah? You wouldn't expect, say, their party to turn around and say, in effect, we don't care how good you are, we want you gone. For the record here, this has nothing to do with Jeremy Corbyn either, in case you might have been thinking that. What has actually happened is the currently serving Labour Metro Mayor for north of Tyne, Jeremy Driscoll, a man actually doing the job right now, has been doing the job since 2019 when he was elected, hasn't even made the long list to stand for the position again. Starmer has in effect sacked a sitting mayor by banning him from restanding for the position he is already holding. Nobody even bothered to tell him either. His team found out from others after making some inquiries. The disdain and disgust, the foul treatment of Labour members, and the sheer arrogance shown by Keir Starmer is breathtaking. What are Driscoll's crimes then? Since 2019, he's been delivering on Labour's Green New Deal. He declared a climate emergency as part of the country having to implement necessary changes across his administration to tackle this issue. He's been bringing down child poverty in his corner of the northeast. He's been building affordable homes to deal with the housing crisis, social homes, and has brought investment and business to the area, creating thousands of jobs. There's nobody anywhere across politics who has said Driscoll has done a bad job. His crime, if any has been committed, is to be a socialist. He wrote it on his Twitter profile. Might have been a daft thing to do, given who leads his party. His crime is to be on the left, though, is to appear on picket lines. And, well, he's been outspokenly pro-Palestinian, too. So that's a surefire black mark in Starmer's little book, isn't it? In 2019, when he stood for the mayoral position, he defeated Labour right-winger Nick Forbes. He had, at that time, been a councillor for just 10 months. And Forbes was leader of Newcastle City Council. So the fact he won and beat somebody that locally prominent spoke volumes of the support for the then Corbyn leadership, the direction the Labour Party was being taken in, and the support Driscoll enjoyed, the wave of a desire for change in this country carrying him to the top. Again, this is his crime, though. Driscoll had the nerve in Team Keith's eyes to be involved in both of Jeremy Corbyn's leadership campaigns, had the temerity to enjoy the support of such luminaries as Ken Loach or Noam Chomsky. So you can see why the narrow-minded control freak Keir Starmer might have an allergic reaction to somebody like Jeremy Driscoll, and you can see why he and his faction are the only ones with a problem with him. Nobody else. In fact, the BBC has reported that the reason given to remove Driscoll is because he appeared with Loach at an event at Newcastle's Live Theatre. Apparently, this is incompatible with the Labour Party's zero tolerance on anti-Semitism, despite Loach, although expelled from Labour, not having been expelled for anti-Semitism at all. More than he had spoken to a retrospectively prescribed group, Starmer's way of purging many left-wingers from the party. Loach's son-in-law is Jewish, for heaven's sake. It's just chronically dishonest, almost as dishonest as, say, Starmer sharing a platform with an Israeli Nakba denialist, but that being perfectly fine because she happens to be the Israeli ambassador to the UK, and it's all politics, isn't it? Well, Driscoll shared a platform with a film director in a theatre, so come off it. It's another risible weaponisation of racism to remove a left-winger. On the face of it, if you go by that excuse, because an excuse is precisely what it is. Contrasting that, though, is the report from Labour List, who claim to have seen a letter citing the need to win elections as the basis for the selection panel's decision, which is even stupider because he's literally the sitting mayor because he happened to have won the last election, and that should be patently obvious. Do these people really think we're all as stupid as they are? Which National Executive Committee right-winger is behind this nonsense? The breadth of support and respect Jeremy Driscoll has built up through his work bears out his reputation, though. The outcry over this has been loud and clear on social media, not the mainstream, obviously. Come on, you should know my channel by now. And has come from all corners. From Labour itself, John McDonnell has said this is staggering news. To refuse to allow a serving mayor onto even a selection long list demonstrates that factionalism in the party is completely out of control. Clive Lewis has said, I didn't think it was any longer possible to be shocked by such sectarian behaviour, but here I am, jaw on the floor. Jamie Driscoll has been one of our most dynamic, successful Labour mayors to date. Such a toxic political culture just isn't conducive to good government. Of course it isn't. Just Labour MPs with positive things to say about Driscoll, who, as a Metro mayor, had to deal with the government all the time as well, of course, not least of which throughout the pandemic. The then vaccine minister, Nadeem Zahawi, has weighed in, saying, I worked with Jamie as vaccine minister. He was always professional and didn't play politics, just wanted to protect the people he represents. Sorry to hear this, Jamie. You are a good man. Stay strong. When was the last time you heard a Tory, especially one as right-wing as Zahawi, say something good about a Labour politician, let alone one on the left? Even Starmer's supporters have spoken out against this. Paul Mason, the fake lefty who has been chasing a parliamentary seat to stand for Labour somewhere, anywhere it will do, it would seem, has said this is self-destructive factionalism. Keir Starmer, lest we forget, pretended to be on the left to become Labour leader, yet swung to become Tony Blair on steroids, his own words, instead. Of course, there's always lies and always receipts to the lies and dishonesty that he comes out with. He once said, I don't think unity is just a noble crusade. I think it's absolutely vital, and we cannot be factional. He lies like a rug. The only explanation is Starmer's factionalism, his authoritarianism, his sectarianism is so severe that it has become obsession to eliminate left-wingers from a party that is meant to be left-wing in and of itself. Driscoll is off the list because he's left-wing, leaving only a current long list of 3 individuals, a Starmerite Northumbrian Police and Crime Commissioner called Kim McGuinness, who clearly desperately wants Driscoll's job going by her Twitter feed, ramped up to the 9 since Driscoll got dropped, former Labour MEP Paul Brannan, who hasn't even mentioned on his account he's standing yet, perhaps he hasn't yet noticed he's made the long list, and a Newcastle councillor called Niku Ion, who is a Roma, seems to me, perhaps I'm being cynical, perhaps I've been following Starmer's actions for too long. Seems to be there to fulfil the Labour Party's equalities requirement for long listing, and frankly, I'll eat my shirt if he makes the shortlist. If any of them were decent people interested in what was best for the party, though, they'd pull out until Driscoll was allowed to stand. But none of them will. Perhaps if Driscoll had taken a leaf out of a recently re-whipped Labour MP's book and sexually harassed colleagues whilst also making drunk racist comments, he might have been allowed to stand. The words of proper Labour MP Nye Bevan should be ringing in the ears of anyone still in today's sham of a Labour Party, especially given what we've seen just here, and now with Jamie Driscoll. But what we've seen over ever since Starmer took over, frankly. The right wing of the Labour Party would rather see it fall into perpetual decline rather than abide by its democratic decisions. That's the phrase, that's the word. How can you argue with that? The people at north of Tyne chose Driscoll. Starmer is now taking their choice away from them. They should be disgusted and should take their votes elsewhere. I hope Driscoll will now run as an independent. I'm certain the support will be there for him to do so, if he does so indeed. Other ex-Labour members running as independents have had great success recently, such as the example in Scarborough, where councillor Tony Randerson, who left Labour for one reason, Keir Starmer, stood as an independent in a by-election he triggered because he was the Labour councillor stepping down from Labour. He did the honourable thing. He triggered a by-election so people had a chance to re-elect a Labour councillor if they wanted to. So seldom do we see it happen. Yet Randerson took nearly half the votes. Labour, defending the seat, of course, got pushed into third and lost it to their own former councillor. Starmer has been punished for his dictatorialism, his imposition and removal of candidates before this. Not long ago, just recently in the local elections as well as before that, where despite headlines saying Labour did very well in these local elections where Starmer interfered, they didn't. I genuinely think Starmer in power would be the most authoritarian, controlling, freedom-suppressing obstacle to civil liberties and basic decency we face in the UK today. He is more right-wing and more of a control freak than many Tories are. Not that they, I hasten to add for clarity, would ever win my vote either. What do you think he'll do with control over the country if he can act to stop people running and speaking for his party whenever he likes, as he keeps doing? His party, he keeps calling it. It genuinely is his party. He runs it like he owns it, not like it's a democratic socialist institution. I genuinely fear he could be even worse than what we have now in government. Every single left-winger in a position of privilege and power, like Driscoll, is now looking at being removed. How can they not be? Every mayor, every council leader, every single left-wing MP left clinging to that Labour Party banner, all of them are on borrowed time, and they are kidding themselves if they believe otherwise. Len McCluskey, former Unite head honcho, also speaking out in support of Jamie Driscoll, has said the trade unions need to stand together and resist this betrayal of democracy, because backing Labour with Starmer in charge could be the worst decision people ever make. And after you've liked, shared and subscribed to the channel that will hold the Tory Starmer to account as much as the Tories who happen to be in power right now, you can see just how badly Labour's local election results actually were, where Starmer had been interfering, in a video recommendation just here. Everywhere he does this, he needs to be defeated until he learns, or until he's forced out by others, because I don't think he ever will learn. Please do stick with the channel and check out hundreds of other videos, new content posted daily, and I will see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.